4.0 in my GPA.
Oh yes, that's good movie. I wanna watch that.
Mom, I got the best job ever.
They finally got married. Yes.
Mom, I broke my leg.
That looks very good.
Mom, I'll never forgive you. Hello everyone, this is Lajain Helwani. I'm a certified crisis counselor who's also a Muslim. If you're new to my channel, I talk about Islam, philosophy, and psychology. With more coverage lately on toxic family relationships and dysfunctional families, especially from a parental point of view, I believe you almost 100% already know this. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on things that I believe have been left out. In all truth, family relationships are extremely important in our hearts. And whenever we are faced with something that causes pain and suffering because of these relationships, it honestly lasts for a very long time and may never be able to detach from our lives. I believe the issue here is whenever we start talking and venting about problems between our parents and us, we are almost always just stamped with the idea of uquq, that we're not being very good kids just because we're not getting along with our parents. And that's something extremely damaging to ourselves and our confidence. And it's not something we want to continue believing. We are judged and labeled as uncaring just because we're having a problem. Now, of course, our parents come from an authority figure and they love us and we love them. But that does not mean that they cannot be mistaken or wrong from time to time. My concern lately is with the cases that I have seen really talking about vengefulness for the self because of how much hurt they have absorbed and kept inside. Mainly, there are two primary causes for this. The parent is either unconsciously envious of you to where they prevent you from living the childhood that you deserve. They are instead making you relive their past childhood or the childhood that they thought they've gotten. Second reason for this is when the parent cannot make the connection between the childhood self and their child. So essentially what we see, we have a child and we tell them, oh, you're not supposed to be crying, stop being so childish. And that happens because I don't want to reconnect with the feeling of dependency or sensitivity to begin with. So let's talk about myths and stigmas that are around this type of topic. Number one, most people think that they are supposed to be always agreeing with their parents to be a good child. Number two, they think that they are supposed to not have a reaction at all to anything they say, like they're not allowed to have a thought or a feeling. And number three, they are not allowed to enter a discussion with their parents about what they think is right and what they think is wrong. Sometimes we also feel like everything the parents give is an order, and that's something we don't want. Or that your life privacy and decisions are up to the parent. Also, you're supposed to become a robot and follow your programming. Sometimes it's even more painful because it's connected to love. We think that if I love someone, I accept injustice from their part. And that regardless of the situation, it is always my fault and I have to take the blame to be generous. A higher level of this is thinking that the self is supposed to completely dissolve and disintegrate for our loved ones. Sometimes it becomes even more of a high-level warning because we think that just because the parents are authority figures, that they're allowed to hurt themselves or us because of that difference in power. And we further escalate the situation by thinking that the fatwa in this type of situation is only related to the sheikh. Oh man, as children, how do we tackle this situation? So number one, ask yourself neutrally and justly, am I doing all of that to show off, to become a rebel of some sort, or am I truly in need of showing my parents something that they are not understanding? Do I have to clear this up? If you think it is, then defend yourself, but with being tactful and lenient in the way you speak to your parents. Seek peace in your attitude. And what I mean by that is pay attention to the target of the conversation. As long as the conversation is not allowed to escalate, you are more likely to get your needs and demands in control and in perspective. Detach yourself from the parents. Make sure that you know their feelings, their thoughts, their behaviors, their consequences of actions are theirs. I'm not supposed to hurt because of their feelings and their actions and all of that. However, of course, I will feel empathetic and this will be a choice. I will decide when it's appropriate for me to interact with them in a way that's more mindful to my own personal health. Please start journaling. Whenever you start talking more on the paper, you will be able to defend yourself in a better sense to where you'd rehearse if you're having a problem with the tact. And also you will be able to start recording your triggers and what subjects to really avoid so that you would not end up in a problem or so you would not end up in an escalated situation with a parent. Whenever you want to communicate a specific benefit towards an action or a behavior, then use the start, stop, and continue method. It is the best for feedback and it's the simplest way to interact with your parents. Accept and welcome mistakes and errors in the way we have acted and we will act. Behavioral changes take a very long time. Of course, this applies for both you and the parent. Do not give up on defending yourself and strengthening your point of view. The idea is not to convince others. So when I talk to my parents, I'm not expecting them to change their behavior. And the idea is also not for me to change. I don't want to become a robot. But the idea is to make others more mellow towards your own personality and your own values. And that's necessary. Nag if you have to. Pick your battles. Sometimes it is very difficult to interact with a parent, and we do not necessarily have to bring every point we think of to their attention, so be wise in choosing what you want to talk about. Check your calmness. Always make sure that you are calm when you're interacting with your parents, and that you are continuously being mindful of how calm and peaceful you are interacting with them. Please ask for help from other family members or friends, anybody you know you can vent to, or somebody who can intervene if you have to. Please do not isolate yourself. It is complete suffering when you're facing this alone. Vent. It's already difficult. If you have no one, hold the camera and talk to yourself. Start graying out details in your life to limit your parents' input on it if you feel like your interaction with them is hurting you. And of course, speak to a mental health professional if you need to. Things for you to keep in mind so that this healing process is even easier. Number one, you have a mutual benefit with your parents. Like, for example, they may help you when you do not have any money. You may get a lot from their will. They may be present to get you out of trouble. Their house is always open for you. And these are all examples that may not all apply, but there is definitely always that mutual benefit that you will get by retaining the relationship. Remember that there's always a reward waiting at the end of the tunnel. No matter what we do, whenever we invest in a difficult relationship, it really betters us at the end of the day, even if we do not get the result we want. Remember that other people's opinion, no matter how much of the high authority figure they are, it is really not something we should consider when we're talking about things related to family relationships and mental health illnesses. The only person to consider their opinion is somebody who's wise, a specialist, and somebody who we can trust. If you're a Muslim, then add they need to be a Muslim too, because you need to have the same understanding of the values. Change is difficult and it's extremely frightening. So when you have these conversations, make sure that you're pitching it in from a point where you're supportive. Inspire that how can I help you type of talks instead of you were wrong in this aspect. Remember that their opinion and their input is there to help you along the way. It's a guidance, but not a mentor to your own life. Acceptance, forgiveness, and levels in between. Accepting a situation and believing its reality and understanding its phases is something completely different than forgiving something. Forgiveness by itself does not mean to completely erase the past or the mistakes that someone has done towards you. However, forgiveness is attributed specifically at how I can better understand the person and understand their reasoning to where I have inner peace. I truly recommend that you forgive situations where you have been hurt, and that is primarily for your own interest. Forgiveness is beneficial to us because it does not excuse other people's harm. However, it focuses on releasing our inner psyche to a higher level that helps us detach from feeling like we are victims, we are taken advantage of, this person is this person is that. This is gonna hold you very closely to them and to their actions and to the past that was hurting you. And this is not something we want. We want to release your inner psyche to where you're capable of being compassionate towards yourself first so that you can heal, and then towards others if you choose to. Forgiveness is therefore a skill that I can gain to better picture myself and other people. Since it's a skill, it's basically just like a muscle. I've got to repeat those actions to grow my strength. Make sure, if you choose to forgive, to number one, realize that it's for your own best interest. I never, ever forgive because I'm expecting other people to change. If people do change, that's amazing. But if they do not, I'm not hurt because I did not choose to forgive them in order to give them a chance to better themselves. although I've forgiven them to heal myself and give myself the chance. To help you forgive if you choose to, there are a couple points I'd like to list here. Number one, realize that we're all human. We're all gonna make mistakes, and yes, sometimes we're idiots, but we are lovable ones too. Allow for the compassion in your heart. Know that difficult behaviors really stem from fear and anxiety, not from an evil intent or a stupid outlook in life. When they were hurting you, they were struggling with their own demons too. Remember that every weakness produces a strength, and truly perfect people do not exist. Yes, maybe they are extremely nitpicky, but they are also extremely good at giving feedback and quality checking. Make peace with the idea that childlike characteristics are going to be present in both your parents and yourself. Sometimes we just scream and yell to get the attention, and that's okay. Become a better friend towards your parents by being a friend who's willing to brave the suffering you see in yourself first and in them too. When people age, their brain processes decreases and their capability of bettering themselves may decrease too. So please be gentle. Remember the life pleasures they had to give up. Ask yourself, did they really mean to be evil to you in this way? Or were they just ignorant because of societal ideas? Or were they just unable to understand what's better? Simply put, when people have a better way, they usually act in a better way. Balance and center your view of yourself and them alike. They may have good things and bad things at the same time. Help yourself by remembering good attributes and things that they have done whenever a bad behavior is popping up. Any relationship always has two parts. Although they may have done you harm, you have also contributed to your past by not standing up to yourself. I encourage you to be more forgiving and passionate even towards yourself, and stop the guilt and the blame by understanding the human nature of your parents and yourself. I'd like to take advantage of this part of the religious content to present a message. Parents, even when the Prophet ﷺ faced the situation when someone came to him asking for zina or fornication permission, the Prophet ﷺ helped the person reach their own conclusion on why this thing is something that we should not be doing. And the Prophet ﷺ never really questioned the integrity of the person or their own strength or respect. Also, the Prophet ﷺ allowed mistakes from adults and children alike. In this situation, the Prophet calmly talked about the change of behavior he requests. Remember that in Islam, we understand that ihsan is extremely difficult and that God would reward you from two perspectives, in this life and in the afterlife. Remember that from an Islamic point of view, your feelings are not in your hand and it's okay to have them. Just be more mindful to the actions you take in regards to the feeling. We worship Allah. So if they ask you to do something that's unjust towards yourself or towards others, please do not follow that blindly. Ibrahim alayhi salam, who's also a prophet, faced a similar situation. He approached it by first reminding the parent that they are parent to provoke the compassion in both the child and the parent. He approached the situation directly by asking for what he wants. He recognized his feelings, named it, and said the consequences that he's afraid of. His parent-like figure has responded in an extremely mean way and something that's not compassionate at all. However, Ibrahim alayhi salam focused on the peaceful way, allowing the parents to hold their own identity, their beliefs, their thoughts, and at the same time, allowing himself to hold his own opinions, thoughts, and feelings. He also took an action to prevent harm from befalling him by choosing to detach from the parent and even in the place of living. Now, Ibrahim also continued to do ihsan by praying for the parent. If your parents are also Muslims, then it's part of the ihsan to pray for them, and sometimes that's all we can do, and that's okay. I'd like to end this video by the simple actionable steps. However, these are directed to the parents. Number one, parenting techniques are extremely important, and it's your kid's right that you learn more about how to parent your kid from a scientific point of view and also from a religious point of view. We have a lot of examples in the seerah to where you would understand how a parent is supposed to act with the kids. Number two, it's the right of the kid to be cared for and taught in multiple fields of life. That includes scientific understandings and content like we find in schools. It includes life skills and social skills. It includes psychological strength and well-being. It includes logical reasoning and health with critical thinking. It includes body health and materialistic needs. Please do not force parenting in only one field of need because that's really and truly unjust. It's their right, above all, to gain that resilience, to feel like they're capable and loved. Remember that the details you think are unimportant and irrelevant, they are the most memorable details of any relationship at all. If you're saying that you do not have enough time to be there for the kid, then at least let the kid see it in your eyes. Call them for a second during an important performance and tell them that. Tell them I'm proud of you. Show them the love because they deserve it. Excessive reprimanding is extremely violent and it's not something you should be doing. It's also frowned upon in Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ did not ever use it with adults or kids alike, and he instead encouraged to be more forgiving to the mistakes of others. If you are in a separated household, please do not insult, humiliate, or lower the value of the other parent in the eyes of the child, because that's also a form of injustice to the child. This previous point honestly hurts the identity of the child and the way they're going to interact with the world with. Compassionately talk and inspire conversations, listen fully to the child and prompt these incidences where you can have meaningful conversations regardless of their age. Make sure that you are able to understand who they are, because remember, this is a mutual benefit at the end of the day, and you as a parent will also benefit from this child. This was all for today's video. I'm wondering if you guys have other means of escaping a toxic family or would like to mention some other techniques on healing from this type of situation. Please let me know in the comments below. In conclusion, the pain and suffering that comes from the lack of understanding or a meaningful, helpful, healthy relationship between a parent and a child is the most amount of pain somebody can carry. And that's why in Islam, we're supposed to care for the orphans and those who are having similar situations. Although the parents are there, they're alienated and they're isolated. These people need more gentleness. So if you know someone in these type of situations, please be extremely gentle in the way you address them and be more helpful, because these people usually need a lot of care and attention. And finally, although there may be a part of our life that's extremely dark and feels gloomy, that does not mean that we have to lead on a life that's dark. We can light other areas in our lives to make our own lives more meaningful and under our control for the most part. I believe in you and I believe in your managing powers.
Check the resources of this video down below. Let me know if you like this content, and please subscribe so that YouTube would think that my content is worth watching. Yep, and until next time.